What up, everybody? Good morning and happy Tuesday. Dan Kasper Show on the air. Appreciate you checking us out and tuning in wherever, however you may be tuning in. Radio dials, a couple of those, 105.1 FM, 790 AM. Also online at sportstalk1051.com. You can stream it, get the YouTube link for the video stream. Otherwise, the video stream is up at Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. Got your Google and Alexa home devices, and of course the Sports Talk app. But Grind My Gears Tuesday. Happy Grind My Gears, everybody. What's grinding your gears? You know the drill. You can hit us up with what's grinding your gears. Get it off your chest. All that fun stuff. What do we got? What else do we got on the game plan here this morning? We're going to talk some Bucks. Bucks with the come from behind victory last night against the New York Knicks. Joe Ingles coming off the bench and being a big-time contributor for the Bucks. 17 points off the bench, 5 of 7 from three-point land. Bucks shooting just a tick under 39% from three. Young contributing with 22 points. Drew Holiday making a big shot at the end of the game there. He finished with 15 points and 9 assists. Every starter for the Bucks last night in double-figure scoring. And a little bit of a shorter bench last night for the Bucks too. Only 4 players coming off the bench, getting some playing time. So maybe kind of tightening that up here a little bit for Mike Budenholzer as the Bucks try to get out of this little slump that they're in that they've been in lately. But almost kind of looked like, oh boy, here we go. Bucks gonna lose another one. But coming back from 17, outscoring the Knicks in the fourth quarter there, and getting the 111-107 victory. Bucks next game going to be at Atlanta on Wednesday, then Miami right after that. So game 1 of this road trip for the Bucks finishes up with a win. Bucks improved to 26-14 on the season, 10-9 for the road on the road this year. So we'll talk some Bucks a little bit later on here this morning, recapping that game in a little bit more details, if you will, a little bit more in depth. So national championship in college football last night. So I know we threw out the question, do you even care? Are you going to be paying attention to it? And I got a feeling a lot of people probably tuned out shortly after the game started last night. 65-7. 65-7, Georgia dominating TCU in every single facet of the game. I mean, TCU put up that early touchdown, and then it was just all Bulldogs after that. It was ugly. It was ugly. Whew. Yeah, I don't know how much we could say about this game. Stetson Bennett finishing off his Georgia career on a solid note, throwing for over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no interceptions. I mean, Georgia, you look at offensive yards, Georgia dominated 589 total yards, 589. TCU just a $188. 3 turnovers for TCU as well. Only 9 first downs for TCU, 32 for Georgia. Georgia dominating the time of possession, about 37 minutes last night. So, after a college football playoff where we saw Michigan and TCU and Ohio State and Georgia, fantastic, entertaining games, and we got this one, which, we kind of touched on a little bit yesterday. That was like my biggest concern. Was like, I just want it to be a competitive game. I want it to be close. I would love to have seen TCU pull off the upset, but whew, Georgia laying the hammer down last night. Yikes. So I know there's going to be the talk and the speculation and the banter and the back and forth about, well, if it was Michigan or Ohio State in that game, probably would have been a better national championship. Maybe, but you got to win your game to get there to begin with. So, Michigan, it's your fault. It's your fault for not getting it done. But Now we get to look forward to 2023. Georgia's already favored to repeat as champs. So, speaking of college, we're going to talk with RJ Cardinal, catch up with him, and another busy last week for the Badger football program in terms of transfer players coming. I know we've highlighted them the last couple of days here, but we'll catch up with RJ about that and some of the newest players that will be coming over to Wisconsin. And speaking of which, the Badger Hoops team, going to be taking on Michigan State tonight. Badger Hoops team falling to 18th in the latest AP polls after their loss to Illinois over the weekend. Tonight's game will be on the mothership. Again, tip off at 6 p.m. So we'll catch up on all things Badgers with Mr. R.J. Cardinal coming up at about, let's say 8:25 this morning. So we got that. Matt LaFleur talking a little bit yesterday, a little bit of an extended presser season kind of recap with the reporters, local reporters there, and that's kind of where we're going to kind of transition into we're doing our own self scouting, if you will, kind of taking a look at positions or certain elements of this team and assess and kind of like, okay, where's the big improvements have to come, or where do some of the changes, if you will, have to come from. But a couple of things that I thought were of note from LaFleur's presser yesterday that I'm sure will get Packers fans very, very excited was he pretty much said Joe Barry's coming back. I mean, he says he doesn't anticipate any, or I should say, really any or not many staff changes. His exact quote was, "I don't really anticipate a whole lot, if any, staff changes at all." When asked about specifically Joe Barry, he said, "That's what I anticipate, yes, in terms of him coming back." So I'm sure a lot of Packers fans will love to hear that. Speaking of staff, he was asked about Nathaniel Hackett, and LaFleur did confirm that he's been in touch with Nathaniel Hackett about coming back to the Packers. And as Rob Domofsky pointed out, that could be tied to Matt LaFleur handing over play calling in order to oversee the entire operation, something he said has crossed his mind. So, with kind of some of the stuff that Matt LaFleur talked a little bit about, specifically the coaching side of things, that's what we're going to lead off on our kind of self-scouting, self-assessment. We're going to look at different groups, position groups, and that, but we're going to start it off with the coaching groups. As we look at it, we're going to break it down and kind of give our I don't want to say grades because I don't really want to grade them, but I kind of want to assess them, or where do you think the improvements need to be? Were there any positives and that sort of thing? And I hope we can kind of be like a little realistic with it all. I know there's some that say just fire, 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 fire everybody, fire this, fire that. Okay, well that's easy. But where do you want to see the improvements from, like, within the coaching staff? Like a little bit more deeper in terms of, like, okay, where do you want to see maybe a different philosophical idea? Like, for example, Joe Barry. All right, I want to see him play more press man coverage or something like that. Or, offensively, maybe you are one that says, I would like to see Matt LaFleur give up play calling duties to oversee the entire operation. Stuff like that. So a little bit more into, like, rather than fire, fire, fire that guy, fire that guy. A little bit more, because let's face it, it's probably not going to happen, whether you like it or not. LaFleur also saying, too, that there's a lot of things all of us can improve on, mostly notable myself. He said that with the defense, he saw improvement as the year went on. The defense developed an identity and played well enough for the Packers to win the other night. So that's where we're going to kind of lead things off, and I'm sure with a grind my gears Tuesday, that maybe we maybe there be some fans out there who still want to move on from a lot of the coaches. There's a lot of people out there too. I mean, at least on Twitter, and I know that's a dangerous place to kind of go down, and it's a deep dark hole. That and Facebook. But I mean, there's a loud group of fans that would like to see the Packers actually fire Matt LaFleur too. So I'm not on that one. But other comments from LaFleur. He said he did speak with Aaron Rodgers briefly after the game. He plans to meet with his quarterback later this week to presumably start initial discussions about Rodgers' future. So I'm sure everybody's going to be. That's like the biggest topic, as we said the other day. So, but let's get into it. So we're going to assess this coaching staff. We're going to assess this thing. So instead of saying fire this guy, fire that guy, fire that guy, where do you want to see the improvements coming from? Where do you think that the biggest improvements need to come from, or where were some of the positives? We're all about the negatives, but were there any positives that you'd like to give a shout out to, or that you think need to be noted from the coaching staff? Do you think there was any members of the coaching staff that you think did a pretty darn solid job this year? Or maybe, they started off slow, but yeah, they got better. It got better. So we'll kind of do that. But if you want to send over your thoughts, you can on the Shoe Doctors bullpen lines, 715-830-1912. Or hit me up on Twitter at DANKASPER, Facebook.com/Kasper Sports, or on the video stream too. So we'll see if we get to some of those a little bit later on. But let's get things rolling here this morning. Oh, plus we got bench start cut. We'll get to that probably around 7:45. And then I'm going to give you a pop quiz question coming up in the next segment. So make sure you're tuning in for that so you can answer the pop quiz question for this Tuesday. But let's get things rolling. Opening drive coming up in just a couple minutes. We'll begin our series kind of assessing, recapping, grading, scouting these different position groups. We'll start with the coaches for the Packers. We've gotten some weird weather so far here in good old Scotty, and you've probably noticed the impact on some of the roads, especially some of the side streets. Potholes, snow-covered ice. It's like, I mean, you got to go slow because your vehicle's hopping up and down. I know yesterday when I was picking up the kiddo from school, the side road I took, I was like, holy moly, you can only go 5 miles an hour on that thing, just bouncing all over the place. But that can also wreak some havoc on your vehicle if you're not careful. So if something does happen, or maybe something has happened with your vehicle, I know I can go to ASAP Used Auto Parts in Eau Claire for some help. If I needed to replace my tire or get some new ones, ASAP Auto has me covered because I know from my own experience, they have the best deals on tires in the Chippewa Valley. And if those winter roads did cause me to have to get a repair, I know I could save some money on a high quality used part from ASAP Used Auto Parts. And I know they will help me find that exact part I will need or what I'm looking for. Chances are we're going to be in for some more weird weather that will affect our vehicle. Just know, though, that if you need help finding a part, getting some new tires or battery, or even just getting an oil change, ASAP Used Auto Parts is there to help you out. Just give them a visit today at 1330 Menominee Street in Eau Claire, across the street from the Dude Dodge over there. So, all right, another kind of, I guess, maybe informal poll question I'm going to throw out there for everybody is, if you had to place most of the blame on the failure of this Packers, I believe it's a failure. Matt LaFleur ended his presser calling it a failure of a season. So if you had to, yeah, his exact quote, "We're not where we expected to be." In that regard, it's a complete failure. Complete failure. So if you had to, I guess, designate most of the blame or put most of the blame on somebody or something, what would it be? Would it be the coaching staff? Would it be the players? Would it be the front office? I think those are probably the top three out there. Now, the easy answer could be, well, it's all the above. D, all the above. It is. I mean, I think that's probably the correct answer. But if you don't have option D and you just had to pick between those three, because you can't go 33.3333333333. Who gets the 34%? You know what I mean? 3 divided by 100 is not even. So who gets the 34%? Who do you think gets slightly most of the blame if you had to pick one? Players not playing up to their ability, coaches not coaching properly or up to their ability, or the front office maybe getting it wrong on some of their thoughts and decisions on player personnel. So let me know on Twitter and Facebook and all that good stuff there. But let's kind of begin our scouting assessment sort of thing when it comes to this. Now that this Packers team, now that we are in the offseason here, and because of Matt LaFleur's presser yesterday, I want to lead it off with the coaching staff and such, because there was a couple of things that I took away the most from the presser yesterday, and I already went through them, but the big ones for me were, it sure sounds like Joe Barry's coming back. Now, I mean, maybe he just didn't want to go out there, day after or presser and kind of just like start some speculation and that sort of thing. Possibly, maybe. I mean, we'll see, but it sure sounds like that Joe Barry is going to be back next year. Kind of gave him an endorsement, if you will. The other thing is that he did mention that he has talked to Nathaniel Hackett, has entertained bringing back Nathaniel Hackett, and it has crossed LaFleur's mind about handing over play calling duties to somebody else. So that's kind of why I want to lead off with, looking at this coaching staff and such. And I know a lot of people are going to have some thoughts on Joe Barry and the defensive side of things here, but I want to start off with the offensive side of things. And one of my biggest things or issues that this coaching staff has got to figure out is you got to come up with some better packages in the red zone. I know I kind of went off on a little bit of tangent yesterday about the red zone, but even LaFleur yesterday calling it piss poor, talking about their red zone offense, and it's inexplicable. It was ugly this year. I mean, and the thing is, I know Devontae Adams is a big loss, but with some of the players that they had in offense and such, there should have been no reason why they were statistically one of the worst in the entire NFL. They finished 24th in red zone touchdown rate and dead last in goal to go touchdown efficiency. That's inexcusable. That's ugly. So whether that's, and I know LaFleur designates a lot, or I should say delegates a lot. And I know he kind of gives his assistant coaches, his offensive assistant coaches, one will have like goal line packages, red zone packages, and 2 minutes or whatever, they'll come up with a game plan. Whoever came up or whoever designs the red zone, and maybe it's a little bit hand in hand because of the play caller of Matt LaFleur too, but they got to fix something because that hasn't been working. Now, I think it's maybe a little bit of both of maybe, some of the packages, whoever designs it, but also, maybe Matt LaFleur play calling it and such. And we will never, ever, ever know. We can always speculate. Everybody speculates, but we will never truthfully know 100% the exact answer if any of those plays are the ones that were originally called or just at the line of scrimmage. We won't know. People will throw out like, oh, horrible play call, but we will never know if that was the original one or if it was an adjustment from the quarterback himself at the line of scrimmage. I mean, we can tell once in a while. Are they fake audibles, though, too? That's the other thing. Are they fake cans? You hear Aaron, will yell can at the line of scrimmage at times. Could be fake ones. He's done that before. We've heard about that before. Trying to trick the defense. But I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of in favor of Matt LaFleur giving up some play calling duties. And it does, and I gotta and I'm one of those two that, I gotta kind of let it go and forget about it. But he comes in and first couple of years, and especially the first year, and the offense is looking good. Like him and Aaron, they've got something working there. Got a good connection. The offense was doing some darn good things. But I think something's got to change there, and I think it's more so towards the overall operation. Just the overall thing, focusing on the overall operation. And you can see examples of different teams where you look at the teams that are in the postseason right now, and you have examples of teams of where their head coach still calls the plays or where their head coach doesn't. Kyle Shanahan, 49ers. All right. He calls plays. Sean McDermott, Bills. He doesn't call plays. I mean, we see examples all across the board here. We see it. And I think maybe it's just, why is that? Why does one team have success with their head coach calling plays, whereas some don't maybe, and some just, have their head coach manning the sidelines and overseeing the whole operation, and that's better suited for that team. Why is that? Well, I think if people knew, maybe we'd see more of one way or the other. You know what I mean? So, but and maybe it's just the way how the head coach kind of delegates certain responsibilities and that sort of thing. But I think I would be okay with it. Now I know for some, a lot of people may not like the idea of Nathaniel Hackett potentially calling plays for the Packers because they'll be like, well, look what happened in Denver. Dude couldn't even finish out his first year, and that offense stunk. Hey, I mean, that's a legit concern. It's a legit concern, but maybe this is the glass half full approach. Maybe it's kind of a similar situation, whereas, maybe he'd do better at calling plays instead of focusing on the overall operation. Maybe, possibly. But I think that is something that Matt LaFleur has to seriously kind of consider. And that doesn't mean that he's not going to be involved in like game planning and the offensive game planning or anything like that. I think he'd still be heavily involved into that. But in terms of calling the plays, I'd be open to that. I would be open to. I'd be curious to see who he would designate because I don't know if there's somebody currently on the roster or currently on this coaching staff that I'd be okay with passing because it's very Tom Clements. I don't think is going to be that guy. Who knows if Tom Clements is even going to come back next year? I know he's got a little bit of experience with that. With Aaron for a few games at least, and under the Mike McCarthy era, I believe he called plays when he was offensive coordinator in Buffalo at the beginning of the 2000s and such. But I don't know if that would be Aaron, or excuse me, if that would be Tom Clements. Adam Stenovich, yeah, I don't. Are you ready to hand play calling maybe off to him? Would you rather see maybe a more established offensive coordinator type of person? I don't know. We'll see, but I'd be okay with that on the offensive side of things. I do think, I do want to give a little bit of positivity after, maybe an off or the beginning of the season kind of mumbled jumbled with, plug and play with their offensive line. But I thought Luke Buckus, the offensive line coach, for what he was given and some of the hurdles that he had to clear with injuries and trying to plug in different pieces there. I thought he did a good job this year overall. Now I know Royce Newman, losing his starting spot, he probably hasn't developed into the player that the Packers expected. They gave him plenty of opportunities there to get in there, but I thought Luke Buckus, who took over as the head offensive line coach, he was the assistant the last couple of years under Adam Stenovich, but Luke Buckus coming over there, given the unknowns of having David Bakhtiari. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? Is he going to have to split snaps and switch out here and there? And then the Elton Jenkins thing and Zach Tom, a rookie, playing a lot of snaps. It was a lot to juggle. It was a lot to juggle for a first-time full-on offensive line coach. And I'm sure, he got help from Adam Stenovich, who's got a lot of experience coaching the offensive line, obviously. But I thought Luke Buckus did a good job, given what he was, forced or, what happened with the offensive line this year. Might have started off pretty slow. Might have started off pretty like, oh boy, what is wrong with this group? But overall, I thought he did a good job. And then, if you want to look at, like maybe some of the other coaches on this, Jason Vrabel, who's the wide receivers coach and passing game coordinator. Wide receivers coach tabbed with, hey, you don't have a Devontae Adams anymore, and he was promoted to wide receivers coach / passing game coordinator this year. But he had to work a lot with the younger wide receivers, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, trying to get them up to speed as quickly as possible. So, I mean, that was a tough task too for him to get some rookies ready to go right away. Special teams, Rich Bisaccia. I mean, I would say he did a fairly good job, right? Maybe took a while to finally move on from Amari Rodgers. And again, that's that whole question. It's like, oh, okay, Keyshawn Nixon, okay, he doesn't have a whole lot of I don't think he had any returning experience with the Raiders, but there were some people out there kind of saying, he was with the Raiders. Why didn't you make the move a little bit sooner if he knew about Keyshawn Nixon? Well, probably didn't have a ton of experience returning kicks and such. Or maybe it was a decision from, upstairs and that sort of thing where they wanted to keep giving Amari Rodgers opportunities. But, putting Keyshawn Nixon in there, it changed the offensive line. Thought Mason Crosby had a solid year this year. He had some consistency with Pat O'Donnell, bringing in a veteran punter with that group. Yeah, there were some blocking issues, a couple block punts and field goals and such, but overall, Thought it was an improvement from the previous years with that special teams group. I thought it was an improvement. Oh, so let's move to the defense now. So we got a couple things we can go with this group here, right? Got a couple different ways here. I mean, if we really, really, really wanted to break down everything, but let's kind of focus on Joe Barry here a little bit. So Joe Barry, as Matt LaFleur said yesterday, it sure seems like he's going to be coming back. Gave him a kind of an endorsement yesterday. Statistically, the numbers did improve in the last few games of the season. Whether there's some of you out there that would care to admit it, they did. The numbers did get better a little bit in the last few games. I'm trying to find like what would have been the last 5. I saw the rankings. I think let me see if I can find the exact numbers here, but they would have been top 10 in points and yards allowed in the last, let's say, quarter of the season here. Let's see if I can try to. Yeah, here we go. This was from Ryan Wood. Packers defensive resurgence in the final 5 games almost certainly earned Joe Barry a third season. Defense allowed 365.5 yards and 21.8 points per game this season, ranking 17th league-wide in both. But in the last 5 games, they averaged 322 yards, 17.6 points per game, and that would have ranked 8th and 2nd, respectively. So they would have ranked, if you look at just the last quarter of the season or the last 5 games of the season, Packers defense ranked 8th in yards given up and 2nd in points given up. I would agree that probably saved Joe Barry's job. But I think he's still got, there's got to be something where, I, this is a tough one for me because, I mean, it was pretty darn bad in the first 12 games. Those 5 games, great. Awesome. But what about those first 12? You know what I mean? Like, what about those first 12? How do you account for that? Great that the last 5, they started to play maybe up to their level there a little bit. But what about those first 12? Can we just ignore those first 12 games? And I'm all about consistency. And I know that's something that LaFleur kind of brought up yesterday about having consistency with the defense or with the coaching staff, having consistency there. But I mean, and that's where I guess I kind of go back to that question of the day, if you will, is like, where do you, if you had to pick between these 3, all the above is not an option because I want you to pick one. If you had to pick who or what gets most of the blame for the failure of the season, is it the players not playing up to their level? Is it the coaches? Or is it the front office? That's where I look at this defense. It's like, okay, was it the scheme? Was it the play calling? Or was it maybe the front office? And I guess a lot of us as fans who overanalyzed how good this defense was going to be. Like, we got it wrong. I mean, we were thinking this was going to be a top 5 unit, for crying out loud, based off the players on paper. Like, we were already crowning them on paper. So was that us in the front office, like, just over analyzing or overthinking it or just getting it completely wrong with these defensive players, or was it the coaching staff? I kind of go back to training camp. Remember in training camp, preseason practices, defense was like dominating the offense. And now you kind of look at it, it's like, well, the offense really started off slow. So how much can we say about that with the defense? But then on the flip side, you're like, well, what the heck happened to the defense then if they were dominating the I mean, it's a circle, and you just like, it's like a hamster wheel, and you keep going back and forth on this thing. So this one's really tough for me. And again, I'm all about consistency, but great. Matt LaFleur said, although it wasn't always pretty, I think we did start to improve as the year went on. I thought we saw more of an identity. Cool. Great with those last 5. But you still have to account for the first 12, don't you? You have to account for that. I mean, did it take up until the bye week for the defense to adjust and to change up their scheme a little bit? And if so, why did it have to take to the bye week? Why couldn't you do that earlier? I get, hey, you get an extra week off to prepare. But I mean, come on. I want to see, I'm not one of those that likes to try to plug players into certain roles if they're not that great at it. I like building game plans and teams based off of players' strengths. You know what I mean? Like, it's like the whole running quarterback Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields thing. Well, are you going to are you just going to tell them not to run at all? Or are you going to try to utilize their strengths? And I think that's something that was missing from these game plans, from this scheme for the most part of the season, especially at the beginning, is not utilizing your players to the best of their abilities. And that's not to excuse some of these players because there was some poor play too. Before Rashawn Gary got hurt, he needs to improve setting the edge a little bit more, over pursuing quite a bit. Adrian Amos had a down year for most people. Darnell Savage, down year. I mean, there was players too that weren't playing up to that level. But I think easily the most disappointing part of this team, based off the expectations that we had for them this year, was the defense. And if this is a defense that's supposed to be built upon a lead, a lead that the offense gives them, that was short-sighted because we all knew, and even Aaron and this offense talked about at the beginning of the year, there's going to be growing. It's kind of an unknown. So, I mean, if you were relying on your offense to still give you leads and your defense was built on that, I think that's extremely short-sighted. Because you were putting even more pressure on an unproven offense, unproven players to give you that lead. And there's no excuse. I mean, they had leads anyways against the Giants in London. I mean, they had leads in other games, yet they still collapsed. Offense collapsed too. Defense was out there quite a bit. It was hand in hand. So if Joe Barry is back, there's easily got to be some changes in terms of philosophy or schematically or something. The staff's got to get on the same page because it looked like at the beginning of the year too where, and I know I got to take a break coming up here, but I'm getting a little animated here. But like Jerry Gray, their defensive backs coach, passing game coordinator. Remember earlier in the season when it was the whole question about press coverage and all that sort of stuff, and Jerry Gray's like, that's a question for Joe Barry. It kind of seemed like there was a little bit of a discord between coordinator and assistant coaches. This group's got to get on the same page. I don't want to see improvement at the end of the season. I want to see a defense that dominates from week 1 to week 17, week 18, whatever the heck we're at now. That's what I want to see. So if Barry's back next year, it's got to be on a thin line. It's got to be on a thin line. I mean, I think we expected this defense to take a jump not only because of the players that they got, but even that 49ers game in the playoffs. Defense played well in that game. They only allowed 6 points on offense, not counting the blocked punt. 6 points on offense against Kyle Shanahan and such. All right. Trending up. Now we're going to add some players. Why did they take a step back? All right. I went off too long, so we got to take a break. We'll have more coming up after these quick words. Forgot to give you the pop quiz question, the Tuesday pop quiz. So I'm going to do that right now. All right. So last night we saw the biggest lopsided national championship game ever. 58 points. 58 points. Your pop quiz, your Tuesday pop quiz question, without looking it up. Who now has the second, or which national championship game is now the second on that list for the most lopsided national championship game of all time? We'll give you the answer just past 7 o'clock there. Forgot to give it to you before the break there, but you can give me your guesses. And I will say, if we're looking at the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like the top 8 there, a lot of really recent. That's my one hint. Fairly recent. So, but yeah, 58 points difference yesterday. Ooh. A couple of texts here. Living the Dream Jeff. Morning, Dan. To me, LaFleur is the head coach. He oversees and should have control of the team's performance on the field. I think we had the players, but zone defense has proven not to work with the players we have. I would also have Rodgers under center more often. He has proven over the years he is better in play action, and would also help the running backs get ahead of steam before they hit the line. Living a dream. Jeff, Surveyor Sam, DK, you know what grinds my gears? LaFleur's presser. First off, you better be demoting Joe Barry because he should not be defensive coordinator. It took you till now to realize you shouldn't be calling plays. You have become complacent and stale in your play calling, relying too much on Rodgers to make a play. And finally, front office. You had years to build depth at receiver position with quality, and you decided to draft a wide receiver in the 4th to 7th rounds majority of the years and built on quantity. And when we had no experience at the beginning of the year, you decided to bring a guy who hasn't had any impact since 2015. Get the heck out of here and realize all of you sucked this year. There you go, living a dream. Or, excuse me, Surveyor Sam, right there. All right, so it's a good one. I like that. Keep your grind my gears coming. I'll get to mine. I think I'm going to do it around soon. Yeah, probably. I might do it in the next hour. We'll see. We'll see how the time goes here. But keep your thoughts coming, hitting us up with a text on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line, 715-830-1912. Okay. What do you think about the coaching staff here? We were kind of assessing it here a little bit, kind of beginning our scouting for the last, or I guess for this offseason now. We're taking a look at the coaches today. We'll look at position groups in the coming days here, but because of Matt LaFleur's presser yesterday, we decided to go with the coaching staff. Kind of assess it here a little bit. Give me your general thoughts. And if I don't want to be all negative either. So if you've got some positive stuff, please send some of the positive stuff on over, okay? Send them on over. I threw out a couple of them out there, but send some of those babies on over. All right. And kind of our informal poll question for this morning is, if you had to put most of the blame, or maybe just a skosh more of the blame on a certain group, would it be players, front office, or coaches? You can let us know. Before we get to the top, though, good morning, Morgan.
How you doing, Kasper?
I'm doing well.
You did a little bit of house cleaning in here, didn't you?
Well, I took the Packer schedule down because we don't need that up anymore.
No, we don't. That's obvious to everyone.
That was a big thing. So that kind of
looks a little empty in here. Yep. Packing the boxes, taking it out.
We need to get a Brewers one up now.
So. Yeah. Everybody ready to look ahead into baseball season, you think?
No, I don't know, because there's a lot of frustration amongst Brewers' lack of activity in the offseason too.
Okay.
So.
Well,
I think there's a lot of upset Wisconsin fans right now.
I think overall it's grumbly.
Yeah.
Maybe we're all a little grumbly for certain reasons. But you're talking coaching staff. If you could, in your dream world, put any coach on the Packers sidelines right now, who would you put?
Andy Reid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right out of the gate, no question.
Yep.
What
Andy
do you
Reid.
think would be the game changer there? What would Reed bring that LaFleur's not?
Instant, and I like LaFleur, so I don't want to diss him or anything, but credibility, Super Bowl winning quarter coach, has shown over the years that he's willing to adapt or adjust his offensive scheme to his players.
Now, where do you think LaFleur falls short?
Game management, overall operations. I mean, he's still a little inexperienced
Is
in
it a
calling
green? Is it
plays.
being green, or is it
Yeah.
just a skill set that you don't see coming into maturation at all?
I think I think he's a little green yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because you're talking about coordinators, and Living the Dream was saying that he relied too heavily on Rodgers to make the calls and not himself. Which or do you think that there's something to be said for the fact that maybe Rodgers would go rogue and make his own calls, and then you have to look at it from that perspective too.
Yep.
Who knows where you fall at?
Yep.
Is he going to be in green and gold next year though? Do you see 12 suiting up?
I do. I know that game, and everybody's like, because they caught the clip where he told one of the receivers, Wilson from Detroit, "I'm going to hold on to this jersey."
Mhm.
I almost felt like that was more Randall Cobb's last game,
Oh.
and I know Jordy Nelson was at that game. Jordy's been at quite a few games this year, actually.
Yeah,
He's
I've
flown
seen him.
in.
Yeah, in the stands
And I know he
making.
was at that one too. So I felt maybe that was more of like a Randall Cobb last game.
Is that sad for you?
I liked Randall. I
Yeah,
liked Cobby.
yeah. And
He's-
overall, what was your takeaway if you're hanging out, you see the way the game's going? I know you stayed up to the end.
Mhm.
Was it a gut punch?
It was disappointing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, the way that they were playing heading into that at Lambeau and all that sort of stuff, it just felt like they felt like they won the game before the kickoff.
And it does feel a little bit like sports hangover in Wisconsin, just kind of that slow, low, fuzzy feeling afterwards all the way around. So maybe the Brew Crew gives us something. On the upside, did you hear though? Rumor mill swirling. Aaron Rodgers is now dating one of
Yeah.
the Bucks owner's daughters. So
Yeah, trying to get a little bit more ownership stake. If you
yeah,
know what I
but you know
mean.
what? It doesn't always go well when he gets a new lady in his life. That seems to be the lesson here.
Yeah.
Focus on the game, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at least he's got an in with the parents.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. Maybe he could switch sports.
Here we go. Second hour kicking off on this Grind My Gears Tuesday. Appreciate you all tuning in, and however, wherever you may be tuning in. Coming up, we're going to do some sports nuggets of the day brought to you by Yancey Associates. Get you the answer to the Tuesday pop quiz question. In case you didn't know it, you got like 1 minute to text it in. What was last night? We saw the biggest lopsided victory in a national championship game. What now is the second biggest? And because we know the college football playoff, it's changed, the last few years, I will accept two answers. I will accept two different answers in this one. I'll put that out there to kind of take away from any, arguments. But I will say nobody has gotten it right yet. Nobody has gotten it right from all the texts yet. Neither one of those answers has come through. So then we're going to get to some Bucks chat here. We've got Bucks with the come from behind victory in the fourth against the Knicks last night. Joe Ingles coming off the bench, 17 points. It's on fire from three down the stretch. Drew Holiday, big shot towards the end of the game. So Bucks picking up a win on the road against the Knickerbockers. We'll discuss a little more Bucks coming up here as well. But let's do some sports nuggets of the day brought to you by Yancey Associates. Not a whole lot here. We got 1950. Ben Hogan appeared for the first time in a golf tournament since an auto accident a year earlier. He tied slamming Sammy Snead in the Los Angeles Open. Hogan did lose in a playoff. 1962, the NFL entered into a single network agreement with CBS for telecasting all regular season games for a cool $4.65 million annually. The Chicago Cubs in 1963 became the first baseball club to hire an athletic director. How about that? Robert Whitlow, 1963. In 1990, the NCAA approved a random drug testing program among college football players and harsh penalties for drug use. We've got 1995 NHL owners rejected the players' unrestricted free agency proposal. 1 year at 32, 5 years at 31, and countered with 3 years at 32, 3 at 31. So those are just some of your sports nuggets of the day brought to you by Yancey Associates. All right, so your pop quiz question. Last night we saw Georgia put a beat down on TCU. 65-7 for a point differential of 58 points. The biggest one out there. Now, who previously had the record? So we could go about this a couple of different ways here. So we know like the college football playoff, 9-year, 10-year, right? You can look at all the bowl games there, national championship and that. And then beforehand, it was obviously different and such. So I will accept two different answers. Okay, I'll accept a couple of different answers on this thing. But if we want to go back to a little bit more, games where the national champion was decided, you got to go back to 1995. Nebraska over Florida, 62-24 for a point differential of 38. 38 points. Number 1 Nebraska versus number 2 Florida. That was the biggest one until last night. Or if you're looking at just like the college football playoff tenure, the 9-year tenure, we'll accept the 2019 national championship. Alabama over Clemson, 44-16. 44-16. Other bowl games in that college football playoff tenure, you had the Rose Bowl, Oregon against Florida State, Oregon 59-20. You had that one on there. So if we're kind of ranking them in the college football playoff tenure, that's the second one. The third one was coming in the same year in 2015. You remember this? Oregon. That was the Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston game. And then the Cotton Bowl was Alabama versus Michigan State. Remember Michigan State getting in there, and Alabama just put a beat down on them, 38-0. So yeah, those were two boring playoff matchups there. The fourth one, you got to go to the Peach Bowl, 2019. We got LSU versus Oklahoma. Remember the years are a little bit off here too, but The Fiesta Bowl, Clemson 31. Ohio State, nothing. So, yeah. Actually, I should. I'll also put Alabama, Ohio State for the 2021 on there too, because that's a 24-point differential. So, yeah, actually, Surveyor Sam, you got one right. You got one of them right. I forgot to add that one on there. We'll throw that one on there too. Alabama, Ohio State, 52-24, 2021 national championship. Saw that one just kind of pop up on Sports Illustrated there. So, all right, Surveyor, my bad. You get some credit. You get some credit there, big guy. You got one of them. So I'll accept 3 answers on that one. I'll accept 3. All right, let's chat a little Bucks. Get things talk a little hoops here. By the way, Badgers taking on Michigan State tonight. Tip off 6 p.m. on the mothership ESPN. Michigan State is actually slightly favored in this game. The last I saw, the line was at a 1.5. If you're looking at lines for college basketball, there, Wisconsin did fall down to 18th in the latest poll rankings after their loss to Illinois. Actually, the spread has changed now; it's up to a 2. So Michigan State a 2. But if you look at the matchup predictor, they're going with Wisconsin at a 69%. So, but if you're looking at Michigan State, their last 5, they're riding at least a 5-game winning streak. They've won their last 5, including their latest win against Michigan, 59-53, Nebraska, 74-56. Both Michigan State and Wisconsin 3-1 in conference play so far. Actually, Michigan State is riding a 6-game winning streak here. 2, 4, 6. Yeah. They beat Penn State, then Brown, then Oakland, Buffalo, Nebraska, and Michigan. So we got that tonight at 6 p.m. Bucks, meanwhile, last night picking up a much-needed win to kind of, maybe get some confidence flowing here a little bit or something. But it almost looked like in the fourth quarter there that the Bucks might lose another game against, let's call it what it is, an inferior opponent on the road against the Knicks. But Bucks rallied from 17 points down to get the victory, 111-107. Bucks finally hit some threes, it seems like. Seems like it's been a struggle for a while, because it has been. But they hit some threes there. That was key in that comeback. Drew Holiday, some big plays down the stretch. We mentioned Joe Ingles hitting some big shots, especially from 3, helping propel the Bucks to come back and pick up that W. It looked like a shorter bench for the Bucks last night too. Here a little bit, maybe by design by Mike Budenholzer, just to kind of figure it out. We talked about some of the comments from Mike Budenholzer and Giannis yesterday, where after their latest loss against Charlotte last Friday, where Mike Budenholzer kind of called it concerning and such with how they've been playing, especially on the defensive effort. But kind of going with a little bit of a shorter rotation. No George Hill, no Wesley Matthews, no Jordan Nora in the game. Starters all played 30 minutes except Grayson Allen. He played 29 minutes, and Joe Ingles, because he was so hot from 3, 5 of 11, playing 28 minutes, most of all the bench players last night. Giannis finishing with 22 points and 10 rebounds for a double-double. We also had Pat Connaughton with a double-double, 11 points and 11 rebounds, being aggressive on the glass there. All starters for the Bucks in double-figure scoring. The only Bucks player who didn't score that played was Carter. And he played 19 minutes, but he was 0 for from the field and didn't get to the charity stripe at all either. He was 0 for 4 from the field and 0 for 3 from 3. So Bucks outscoring. I mean, it was close game throughout until that fourth quarter. Knicks went in with a 5-point lead, heading into the fourth quarter with a 5-point lead. Knicks jumped out to a 17-point lead, but Bucks found a way. Still, too many turnovers, 14 total turnovers for the Bucks last night too, compared to the Knicks 7. But Bucks at 38.8% from 3. That helped to kind of propel them there a little bit too. So, just kind of looking. Man, Knicks shot 90% from the charity stripe. 20 for 22. Oof. Yikes. Next game coming up for the Bucks will be tomorrow as their road trip continues. A little back-to-back. Atlanta on the road. Then they're going down a little bit more south to Miami, where they'll play Miami 2 games in a row. Thursday and then Saturday, a break on Friday here. If we're looking at the latest standings in the NBA, the Bucks still holding on to that 3rd seed in the Eastern Conference, remaining 2.5 back from the 1-seeded Boston Celtics. Brooklyn still in that 2nd spot, 1.5 back from Boston. And then Cleveland sitting there at 4. If you're kind of looking ahead to the schedule, Bucks will be taking on Cleveland next set, not this coming Saturday, but the next Saturday, so the 21st. In fact, I'm just kind of looking at some of these games. So Atlanta right now is a playoff team, so the Bucks will be going up against them tomorrow. Miami is a playoff team, so and we're talking bottom end of the Eastern Conference here. Then they got Indiana, playoff team. Toronto, just on the outside looking in that final 10 spot. So these next 2 games, and the Knicks are a playoff team too right now. So, I mean, they are going up against playoff teams, but these are like the bottom end of the Eastern Conference for the Bucks here. Not like that stretch they had in December and Christmas where they were going up against New Orleans, Cleveland, Brooklyn, and Boston. But now we are officially under a month from the trade deadline. Since today is the 10th, we're under a month right now. More rumors kind of starting, more reports kind of going out there. Crowder is still a name that's getting thrown out there for the Bucks, that the Bucks have still really tried to get a deal done, including a 3-team deal involving the Rockets, perhaps. Other players have been, if you Google it, you can find a blog that will say, targets that the Bucks should go after before the trade deadline. I mean, everybody can write a blog and put that out there. But some of the other ones that, have kind of been like legit, and when I say legit, I'm talking like insiders, NBA insiders and such. The Crowder one is still out there. Just a couple days ago, there was a report that, going back to the Crowder one, Matt Moore of Action Network, that the Bucks nearly completed a deal for Crowder. The Rockets, that 3rd team in, proved to be the roadblock, according to him, that stood in the way that could have gotten that deal done. Quote, Milwaukee was reportedly close to a deal with the Suns for Jay Crowder, but the 3rd team in the deal, the Rockets, wanted more draft compensation. League sources said they would not be surprised to see another iteration of the deal go through before the deadline. I'll be curious to know what this entire package is for a guy like Crowder coming in here. But if we look at all the reports and we look at all those stories and rumors out there, it sure seems like they are hell-bent on trying to get Jay Crowder from the Phoenix Suns. And we were talking about this before right before the opener, right before or right at the end of October. There was already those reports and rumors and stuff out there that the Bucks were going to try to get Crowder. But now that we are in January, and that's the thing too to remember when it comes to these NBA trades, because they've got these weird loopholes. Jordan Nora, the Bucks couldn't trade if he's a part of the package. They couldn't trade him until January. You have to wait a certain amount of time after they sign these deals, after they sign their contracts. At that point in October, the only player that was like a realistic option to be traded was Grayson Allen. And I think Grayson Allen right now is maybe a little bit more of a focal point with this team, especially with Chris Middleton still banged up and still injured. So now that there's more options, and I just kind of wonder too with Ingles and his performance last night from 3, I don't know. I don't know if he was involved in some of these trade packages or some of these trade rumors and such, but with the way he was shooting the ball from 3 last night, maybe if he was, maybe the Bucks would have second thoughts about moving on from him too. Again, that's just pure speculation. I don't know if they would think about it or not, but I'll be curious to know what this package looks like for Jay Crowder. And the Suns kind of hold the cards right now too, because obviously they know how much the Bucks want Jay Crowder, so they can ask a little high I can ask for a high price right now. All right, let's take a quick break here. Then we'll get back to some more green and gold chats. Let's catch up on a couple texts before that, though. Nobody's scared to come to Lambeau in January anymore. People would rather do it, it seems like. What positive is there from coaching staff except improvements on special teams? Joe Barry has stunk in every stop. Was this year the proof that Devontae made Rodgers, or together Rodgers and Devontae made LaFleur? Um, what grinds my gears are Bear fans that worry more about what the Packers do every year since 1985. Living a dream, Jeff. All right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll chat some more green and gold with Joe DeGuano coming up after these few words. Don't forget to get your flavor ideas in for our upcoming brat and snack sticks. We're partnering up with Mike's Star Market. We know one flavor. It's going to be Man Cave Light. It's going to be one flavor, but we need your help in deciding what the other flavors are going to be for the other brats and for the snack sticks. So this is what you got to do. It's fairly simple. Just go to sportstalk1051.com and click on the Enter and Win tab over there. And then you'll see the icon that says Help Create Our Brat. Click on that, and then all you just got to do is put in your flavor ideas. We've gotten some good ones on there. Keep these coming. If we do select your flavor idea or recipe, you're going to win a gift card from Mike's Star Market. So if you're commenting on our Facebook posts or Twitter, anything like those don't count. You got to go to our website and you got to click on that link and enter it on there. It takes you 5 seconds. Like takes you 5 seconds to do it. So we've gotten some good ones on there. Get creative. Have fun with this. I think that's the one thing we know with all the different brats out there in our good, great, grand state of Wisconsin. So we've got some crazy ones out there. So let's get a little creative. Let's have a little fun with this one. All right. So again, we're looking for both the brat flavor and a snack sticks flavor. Big thanks to Mike's Star Market for this. And the best part in this whole thing, too, is that it's going to help raise some money for Backyard Dreams. We're going to help raise a lot of money for Backyard Dreams for some kiddos in our area. And I know, G-Man, if you're listening right now, G-Man, you're probably anxiously waiting for those brats to come out so you can stuff your coolers and fill your coolers up, getting ready for a little spring and summer there. All right, let's get back to talking a little bit more green and gold here this morning. We have spent a good chunk already this morning kind of taking a look at different parts of this team as we kicked off our off-season scouting of this team, and we started off with the coaching staff because of Matt LaFleur's comments yesterday in his season-ending presser talking about the coaching staff. And two of the biggest things that I took away from it was one, it sure sounds like Joe Barry's coming back. The second being that he is considering giving up play calling duties maybe to Nathaniel Hackett if Nathaniel Hackett decides to come back. So Joe, your thoughts on Joe Barry? Sure sounds like he's coming back. Matt LaFleur talked about the last 5 games, and you look at the statistics. Yeah, they were a top 10 team, but what about the first 12 games of the season?
Yeah, it was interesting, Captain, when he said that. And one of the things that I've come to the conclusion with LaFleur is, he's very loyal, and he's very loyal to his assistant coaches, and that's a great quality. I don't want to take that away from LaFleur, but also I think LaFleur is not global enough in his outlook as a head coach, and I think he needs to interject himself when he sees either coordinators or positional groups not changing or improving or getting better, because you're absolutely right. Joe Barry did not adapt over the first part of the season. First, really, 2/3 of the NFL season. Joe Barry did not adapt and change. And so, don't get me wrong, I give credit where credit is due, and Joe Barry did make some changes, did adapt to his personnel, did adapt to the schemes that they were seeing. But this is one of my complaints with LaFleur, is I just think he doesn't have that global perspective that a head coach needs to have, where sometimes a head coach needs to step into that room. Sometimes a head coach, whether or not you're an offensive coach or a defensive coach, you need to cross to the other line and have conversation, whether it be a personnel choice like Amari Rodgers, Darnell Savage Jr., or a scheme choice like we went through with Joe Barry. So, interestingly enough, Captain, if Joe Barry is kept on, which it does sound he will be, this is the longest tenure, 3 seasons, that Joe Barry will have gotten as a defensive coordinator. He lasted 2 seasons in Washington and 2 seasons in Detroit. So I get it. There was improvement, but I still think, and this is my biggest complaint on this coaching staff, is accountability. And accountability and really stepping in and benching a guy if you need benching. And I'll speak to, obviously, a couple of really boneheaded penalties by the Green Bay Packers defense on Sunday night, Rasul Douglas and Quay Walker. And, this is the second time with Quay Walker. He did it before in the Buffalo game with a practice squad player. He did it with a trainer on the field against Detroit. Nothing happened after that first incident with Buffalo. If I were the coach, I might have benched him for that next for that next game, at least starting. And so, again, I think LaFleur's biggest problem is accountability on this staff right now. And I was hoping to hear a little bit more meat yesterday in the press conference. I think some things still could shake out, but it'll be interesting to see where they go. As far as the Nathaniel Hackett thing, I've never been a believer in a head coach being the play caller. And this goes back to my point about you lose global perspective when you're the play caller as a head coach. And so, Nathaniel Hackett, not a great track record either as a play caller. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. I do think that Matt LaFleur needs eyes on the sidelines and needs that assistant coach to help him see the global perspective on things. So lots of question marks this offseason. LaFleur sounded like coaching staff will remain intact. We will see.
Yeah, I think, one of the biggest things that maybe fans or Packers fans kind of had with LaFleur yesterday was he used the term, it was a complete failure, and talked about all the shortcomings, yet it sure sounded like all the coaching staff was coming back. So I think the big question for fans, Joe, is like, okay, if you do recognize that this was a big time failure, where are the changes going to come from then? So where are the changes going to come from?
Yeah, that's a great point, Captain. And it's when he talks about that, we got to look at ourselves in the mirror. We got to take a hard look at where we made errors. And when he talks about the Russell Douglas and the Quay Walker penalties, and that's a reflection on him, and then you don't make changes. At lip service, it's a tremendous thing. If you don't take actions, though, nothing ever changes. And it also sounded, LaFleur, and again, emotions are raw. It's obviously right after the game, the day after the game, that type of thing. And so, it sounds like he wants the coaching staff, he wants the players, he wants everything to remain intact in a year where this football team was broken for most of the year. And yes, we all know the Packers went on a late season surge and a late season run to put themselves in a position to be in the playoffs. But for most of the year, this team seemed lost both defensively and offensively. And so, yeah, I don't know where the changes are going to come. And when a coach starts speaking like LaFleur does, and I don't think Matt LaFleur is on the hot seat, but when you start hearing these things, it's very reminiscent of how Mike McCarthy started talking towards the end of his career with the Green Bay Packers. And you don't like going down this road where coaches, the inability to fix the problem, the inability to really look at the root of the problem rather than putting a Band-Aid on the situation. So I've got my serious doubts today where this team is. And do I think that there's some young talent on the team? Do I think that Goody did a really nice job this last draft? Do I see potential on the Green Bay Packers, and do they still have some blue chip players? Absolutely. But right now, there's a lot more question marks than there are solutions, and Matt LaFleur did not answer those questions.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about it last night, Joe. If I know we got an off season, we got a draft and all that sort of stuff, but as it currently ranks right now, I would pick Detroit over Green Bay right now in terms of arrows trending up right now. Minnesota and Detroit above Green Bay at this point.
Yeah, I would too. And it's interesting because you look at the job that Dan Campbell did, and he told his players that, look, we're not getting into the playoffs, neither is Green Bay. And I'm going to go back to the Jets game. And Robert Saleh, he talked about his halftime speech in that Jets-Packer game, and he said, we're going to keep on punching Green Bay in the mouth, and then we're going to take them down to the deep end to see if they can swim. And he said, I knew they would drown. And so there's something missing from a mindset standpoint. And my question really comes to it is, Matt LaFleur, does he have the global perspective? Does he have the intestinal fortitude, if you will, to make some really, really tough calls? And it remains to be seen. Don't get me wrong. I think Matt LaFleur is a good NFL football coach. I think, he did even talk about it. He intimated that sometimes good times and good scores coming out with a win, it masks poor performance. And you look back at the last couple of years, and you had Aaron Rodgers at the top of his game. You had Devontae Adams. Now you don't have Adams, and now you have Aaron Rodgers slipping into his game. And so now it's up to the coach. And I truly think that Matt LaFleur has gotten into a little bit of that Mike McCarthy way now, that he's just riding Rodgers a little bit to see what Rodgers can do. And so, yeah, I think the Packers and Matt LaFleur, I think, are at a real crossroads right now. And obviously, the Aaron Rodgers decision is looming out there, and I think that's a big part of this. But I do think that Green Bay needs to really, really look at this situation and say, how do we take a left turn rather than continue downhill? And I go back to it, Captain. I still think inherently, to a certain extent, the Green Bay Packers ownership structure is actually a negative when it comes to this type of thing, because there's really no owner putting pressure on the coach, putting pressure on the expectations, putting pressure on the franchise to do some things. So again, interesting off season. I think there are more question marks than answers, and Matt LaFleur has done nothing to answer any of them.
You know, the biggest question, obviously, that everybody in the world is going to be paying attention to is whether Aaron Rodgers is going to be coming back. And well, we saw him walk off the field. We've heard him talk and such. Emotions are raw, so I try to take that with a grain of salt. You've talked about that you think Aaron is coming back. Are you still sticking with that after what you saw on Sunday?
You know, here's the thing. The one thing I do know is that Aaron Rodgers, no matter what you see in public, Aaron Rodgers does not want to be compared to Brett Favre. All right, and I think, you know, Aaron Rodgers has wanted for a long time, and I know this for a fact, to be considered the greatest quarterback ever to play for the Green Bay Packers. And I thought it was really the way this team was coming around towards the end of the season. I thought it was a no-brainer that Rodgers would come back. And here's the thing. If Rodgers retires, he goes down with Brett Favre as the last pass both of them ever threw was an interception on their home field. And so I don't think Aaron Rodgers wants that legacy. And so I don't see him retiring. And you know, so the question's going to be, is he going to play for the Green Bay Packers or is he going to play for somebody else? Now, the other thing I know about Rodgers is he's always wanted to truly end his career as a lifetime Packer. Again, going the anti-Favre direction because he wants to do things differently than Favre did. Now, that being said, and I know a lot of Packer fans out there are saying, oh my gosh, Green Bay didn't get to see what they had in Jordan Love. I guarantee you Green Bay knows what they have in Jordan Love. And I go back to my conversations with the coaching staff back with Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. The coaching staff knew darn well what they had in Aaron Rodgers just from scout team, just from the fact that continually Rodgers was beating their number ones on the scout team. So Green Bay knows what they have in Jordan Love. And I still look back at the contract that Gutekunst and Mark Murphy gave to Aaron Rodgers last year. And that contract, in my opinion, spoke volumes about what they feel about Jordan Love. And so I know Packer fans are wringing their hands saying, well, the Packers this year played themselves into a 15 pick in the first round, didn't get to see Jordan Love, et cetera, et cetera. This team knows exactly where they are. So I think if this team does not believe in Jordan Love, I think Aaron Rodgers is back. I do not see Aaron Rodgers retiring. And so you're going to know pretty quick this spring, because I don't think Rodgers is going to carry this thing out, what Green Bay decides to do. If Green Bay decides to keep Aaron Rodgers, and again, that guaranteed fifth year, the clock's already ticking on that for Jordan Love. So I don't see retirement. Aaron Rodgers will either play for the Green Bay Packers to extend his legacy, or he will go someplace else. I don't see retirement as an option.
You know, maybe I'm being a little too dramatic in this, but I just kind of chuckle at some of the comments that especially he made after the game. And again, I try to take that with a grain of salt because of the result and that sort of thing. But where he said, and I know he said this kind of a few weeks earlier, it's got to be both sides got to want to agree for me coming back, and the sense is maybe I get is maybe they want to go young. Do they even want me back? Matt LaFleur has consistently said they want Aaron Rodgers back. I almost feel like he's saying some of this stuff out there, like how people go on Facebook and post a drama post on there to get some attention, or like, show me some love, man. I just want to see some love here. Just that's what I get from Aaron a little bit when he makes these comments, because I got to imagine he knows whether Green Bay wants him back or not.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. I think Aaron Rodgers never says anything without forethought and without knowing where he wants to take it. He is a very smart, very thought-provoking individual, and he's also very polarizing. And I don't think there are fans that are like, well, I can take him or leave him. I think it's either I am pro Aaron Rodgers or I am against Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, I agree. I think a lot of his comments are hey, and this is why I just think that the organization knows exactly what they have in Jordan Love. Because I just don't think you would have seen this kind of contract given to Aaron Rodgers if the situation were the same with Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. And so, yeah, I agree with you. I think Aaron Rodgers knows exactly what this organization wants. I think Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur know exactly what they want to do. And the truth will come out very shortly. But, yeah, I think he is playing a little bit of the game and doing, like you said, hey, I'm posting. I'm posting to get pats on the back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's exactly what Aaron's doing. I think this franchise knows exactly what they have in 10. I think this franchise knows exactly what they want to do with 12. Again, this contract was not built. And don't get me wrong, I know the dead cap hit, if it's this year, is actually the less amount than the coming years. I get all of that, but still, I don't think Green Bay does what they did last offseason if they were looking at Jordan Love taking over anytime soon.
And this probably will be the easiest question I ever ask you, but was the brightest spot or the most positive thing from this team this year Christian Watson?
Yeah, no doubt. I think Goody, struck gold, and you could see what he does on that football. He tilts the field, and I know the comparisons have been made, but he is Randy Moss-like. I'm not saying he's going to be Randy Moss, but when you've got a guy 6'4" who's running 4.2, 4.3s, and his athleticism is off the charts, yeah, that is that you've got a guy that absolutely is an absolute game changer who tilts the field. This whole draft class, and I take away the really dumb penalty by Quay Walker, but I thought towards the end of the season, Quay Walker played better. You saw some flashes with Wyatt. You obviously Zach Tom, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs. So this is one of those draft classes that you got to feel really good about. And the arrow is pointing up, and that's another reason to get it. If I'm Aaron Rodgers, and I know what I've got coming back next year in that receiving core, and I do think Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon both come back too, Jones on a restructured deal, that's a pretty good offense. You just need to find that tight end position and a true slot guy, and you can rock and roll with this. So, yeah, Watson, huge upside, arrow pointing up, and that's another reason why Aaron Rodgers might just stick around another year.
Last question for you, Joseph, before I let you get out of here. If you had to pick between these three groups or people or whatever you want to call them, that gets the most blame, and I would argue that it's all of them, all the above, but that's not an option on my test here. So it's just A, B, or C. Who gets the most blame for the failure of the season? Is it the players? Is it the coaching staff? Or is it the front office?
I'm gonna. That's a tough one, and they all are to blame at a certain level. But I'm gonna go players. I'm gonna go players in this situation, followed by coaches, followed by the front office. And I know the front office, basically has given in now to 12. But as I said, the front office did a really nice job this year of coming up with a really good draft. And I think they did a really nice job when you look at picking Rasul Douglas up and those types of things. I think the front office has done a nice job. But I think players, you look at just this stat alone. The Packers had the third most drops in the NFL this year. And so that's on the players. That's not a coaching problem. That's on the players. They had 32 drops, third most in the NFL. And so, that's a player thing. So I'm going to go players first, coaches second, front office third.
All right. Well, Joe, start getting your scouting reports out for the draft, man. It starts now. So start.
I know that we didn't want to turn the page yet, but we're turning the page. So it is what it is. And It's time to start looking at it. And by the way, here's the good news, Packer fans. Right now, projected about $40 million over the cap. So Green Bay has its work cut out this offseason.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. Well, appreciate the time as always, Joseph. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll catch up again next week. Okay, sir?
All right, brother. Take care, man.
You got it. There you go. There's Joe DeGuano joining us here for a little bit this morning, talking some green and gold. Tell you what, let's take a quick break, and then we're going to finish up this second hour. Then we're going to catch up with our good friends from the Steel just past 8 o'clock, and then right after that, more Badger talk with RJ Cardinal. We got hoops tonight. Badger football team still picking up players to that transfer portal. Do yourself a favor, or I guess it's most likely myself a favor, but help a guy out here a little bit. If you're not subscribing or following the Mad Cave podcast brought to you by Hy-Vee and Toyson Ford, well, what the HE double hockey sticks are you doing? Available on every podcasting platform, your favorite podcasting platform out there. Daily episodes, new original content up there. So check it all out, all right? And if you have the ability, depending on your platform, to give it a 5-star or positive review, do so. And if you do it, I'll tell you this. If you do it, if you haven't done it already and you do this, you go to, like, if you got like Apple and you leave a positive review or 5 stars, or Spotify and you give it 5 stars, screenshot that thing, send it to me. Maybe I'll send you something. All right. We'll do a little contest here. I'll send you a little something. How about that? So if you already did it, hey, I appreciate it. But maybe for those of you who haven't done it, go ahead and do it. All right. Then maybe I'll send you something. But you got to send me a screenshot. That's the only way I know that you did it. So, all right, we only got about 5-6 minutes to the top. Let's do a little bench start cut. Going a little bit of a different route for this bench start cut. I'm going to try to do this. I wanted to kind of switch it up here, but with Super, I got to make sure to put the Super in front of it. Super Wild Card Weekend this weekend. I wanted to highlight 3 games in here and kind of like, okay, which of these would be like the most confident I would have in picking the underdog? And I'm going based off the lines here. Okay. So, I'm taking out Bills, Dolphins, and 49ers and Seahawks for sure in this one. So, like, bench or like start would be like, I'm betting the underdog in that one. Like, that would be the one that I'm the most confident in. Bench would be the second most. Third would be, the least amount of confidence. So I'm taking out, the 49ers and Seahawks. That one's at a 10. I'll tell you right now, I'm taking the 49ers in that one. I'm taking the Bills over the Dolphins. That one's at a -10. And I'm taking out I'm going to take out the Bengals and Ravens one too, because that's at a 6.5 for the Bengals. So your other games here, if we're going based off the lines, Chargers at Jaguars. Chargers favored by 1.5. Then you've got Giants at the Vikings. Vikings favored by 3. A little surprised at that one. Thought it would be a little bit higher for the Vikings. And then you got Cowboys, Buccaneers. And Cowboys favored by 3. So, my cut, the one that I'm least confident in that the underdog will win. If we're going based off the lines here, I'm going to go with the Giants and Vikings game. I feel like I'm confident in the Vikings one. I'm picking the Vikings in this one. I'm a little surprised that they are. I know Greg Joseph hit that field goal. I just feel like this is a Vikings game here. I think maybe that Green Bay game was kind of a nice little like refocusing game where they got their BUTTs kicked. So my cut, I'm going to go with the Giants in this one because I'm already picking the Vikings. My second most confident underdog game, I'm going to go with the Buccaneers. The way the Cowboys ended their season against Washington, it's already got people kind of wondering, oh boy, is this going to be the same old kind of Cowboys when it comes to the postseason? Buccaneers just haven't been good all year. Yet it's Tom Brady in the playoffs. It's in Tampa Bay. So, and then here's a nugget. Cowboys are 0-7 all time against Tom Brady. This one's back and forth a little bit for me, but that's the second most. So that would be the start, or that would be the bench, excuse me. That would be the bench one. My number one, though, is Jaguars Chargers. So the Jaguars are the underdogs in this one. Jaguars are the underdogs in this one. I kind of like the Jaguars a little bit here. I don't know if I fully trust the Chargers yet. Beginning of the year, I was on that Chargers bandwagon, but I don't know if I'm ready to put all my eggs in. And the fact that Mike Williams a little bit banged up, I don't know. I kind of like what and I know the Chargers barely squeaked by the Titans. Don't get me wrong, they barely squeaked by the Titans in their game on Saturday. But remember back in week 3, the Jaguars, they dominated the Chargers on the road too. I don't think it was a 38-10 game. I don't think it'll be like that, but my start of all of these 3 underdogs in their playoff games today, if I had to pick the ones that I was most confident that was going to win, I'd go Jaguars, I'd go Buccaneers, and then I'd go Giants. Although it's really close between Jaguars and Buccaneers. It's just the Buccaneers have just been blah throughout the most part of the season. If they were playing like anybody else besides the Cowboys, I'd probably they got no shot at this. But since it's the Cowboys and such, I'm struggling to kind of pick the NFC here a little bit, to be honest with you. What I saw, who's that guy that's like the political guy on NBC Sunday Night Football, but now he's doing like the predictions, statistics, and all that stuff. He said the Eagles only have like a 30-some% chance to go to the Super Bowl out of the NFC. And I know you got all these teams and the numbers and that, but I'm like, ooh, for a 1 seed, that doesn't seem very high. Doesn't seem very high. And I don't know. I don't know how this NFC is going to play out, to be honest with you. And everybody's gung-ho about the 49ers, but part of me is still like waiting for that Brock Purdy game to kind of come down to earth just a little bit. Just a little bit. And then you got the Cowboys. If they beat the Bucs, everything kind of goes, chalk. They would have the Vikings. I think the Cowboys can beat the Vikings. Then what if they play Philly? Ooh, Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys in the Super Bowl. Could happen. All right, let's talk some hockey. Chip of Steel coming up next. All right, final hour on this Tuesday morning, kicking off right now. Appreciate you all tuning in, however and wherever you may be tuning in. Got a few texts coming in with those screenshots of the podcast. All right, thanks for doing that. Keep them coming. Maybe we'll send you something there. Coming up towards the bottom of the hour, we're going to catch up with RJ Cardinal from the zone in Madison. Lots to catch up on with the Badger football team, adding some more players through the transfer portal. We'll get RJ's thoughts on all that. Plus, we got Badgers taking on Michigan State tonight in some men's hoops action. We'll get back to some more of your text, tweets, and Facebook posts, but we kick off this portion of the hour like we usually do every Tuesday, catching up with our good friends from the Chip with Steel. No coach, we get Kyle back in studio. How's it going, man?
Hey, Dan, thanks for having us on. Really appreciate it.
You got it. It's good to see you again, man.
Great to see you. Last time was very enjoyable.
Yeah.
Talking to you. So good to be back.
We were talking a little off air, but you had a good holiday, able to spend some time with family and friends back out east a little bit.
It was great. Yeah. Able to go home a little bit with family and friends, like you said, and just having like a 10-day break in the middle of our season like that is really nice to kind of reset and get ready for the second half.
Exactly. So, we're going to talk a little bit about splitting against Janesville this past weekend. I mean, it's still kind of a race within your division. And, it seems like a game or two can make all the difference in the standings right now. I mean, it's kind of been that way throughout the whole season, though, too, hasn't it?
It has, from first place to seventh place is knotted up by just a couple of points. And obviously the top four make the playoffs. I believe we're sitting fifth or potentially sixth right now. But we're right there in striking distance. Had a split, like you said, in Janesville this week, but had a lot of chances, just unable to convert in that second game. But we have a team that is extremely talented. It's just about putting it together consistently.
Yeah, and I know Coach has talked a lot. He talks a lot about the players, such, but some cool story coming from these players too. Like your goalie, we were talking a lot about last week with Coach Casey. But it seems like this year too, a lot of kids. I keep calling them kids, but I mean they kind of are kids, right?
Yeah, 16 to 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
I mean they're still young and obviously learning the game every single day. But I think what you were trying to say is like we have a lot of guys that are taking big strides on the college levels, getting a lot of commits.
Exactly. Yeah. I would say more so than any of the previous years, and I know it's a young team, but once it seems like almost every week or so, I'm seeing you guys post, hey, we got another player who committed to this university or going to this college. And that's fantastic. And that's pretty much one of the main goals with this too, is making sure those guys take the next step in their hockey careers.
100%. The North American Hockey League is the league of opportunity, and a lot of these guys want to take that next step at the Division I level. And I can tell you right now, we got a couple of more commits rolling in here, and we're going to have a team that's full of Division I players really by the end of the year.
Wow,
these guys are really talented, and so obviously, like when we're losing, it's not lack of talent. It's just about putting it together and like playing together as a team. Everyone's got to buy in to what Coach Casey and the staff is really trying to say. So, but we have guys. We have two guys on our team headed to Wisconsin. To be future Badgers. A couple of big names going to Minnesota Duluth or Minnesota State. So, these are big colleges, big time hockey universities, and that's really exciting for a lot of these players.
Absolutely. So you guys kind of a little break this weekend, right? Kind of no game scheduled this weekend. So
we have a bye week. We just kind of came off that holiday break though, so it's awkward timing. But we do have a couple of guys that are still recovering from either injury or illness. So to get back healthy again, to really push for the playoffs here is going to be important.
Yeah, I know Coach mentioned last week, I think a lot of kids were kind of under the weather or getting that bug that was traveling, through the locker room and such. So maybe it's kind of a blessing to have this bye week a little bit.
I would agree. We just going to need to reset here and just focus on like the things that we're good at so that, when we're ready to go for against the division leading Minnesota Wilderness in 2 weeks, we're going to give it our best effort.
Yeah. We got one home game just in the month of January left here coming up on the 20th. First Responders Night, which is awesome to recognize the first responders there. And you mentioned it, that is against the Wilderness too. So that's not only is it a great night promotional wise, but a great matchup against the leader in your division.
100%. From my perspective, obviously being like the director of marketing and operations, so that's going to be a really exciting night, to honor the first responders who do so much for our community. And obviously you see even on the grandest of stages in the NFL, obviously first responders are, your EMTs, they come in and huge,
Yeah.
So to obviously celebrate that, all first responders will get in free for that game, and then it should be a great crowd, which is exciting on that Friday night, January 20th. But then, like you said, Minnesota Wilderness, we've played 4 games against them this year. 3 of them have gone to overtime.
Man.
We've won 2, lost 2. So we can compete with them. It should be another solid matchup, and looking forward to that weekend.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of looking ahead to your schedule after that too. It's going to be a grind after that too. I mean, just nonstop action. After the Wilderness, you got rematches against Janesville, in-state rival with Janesville. Then you're at going up against Kenai, Springfield, and then you got quite a few road games coming up for the rest of your schedule coming up here too.
We do. And I think being on the road is beneficial to our group. Our home record is just about 500. If you look at the division and you kind of focus on the away, everybody in the division actually has a better road record than they do at home, which I find interesting.
Yeah.
And one team in particular, Kenai River, I think is 14-2 on the road. And
that's not like a close. I mean, they got to travel further than what a lot of teams do.
Exactly. They're one of those Alaska teams.
Yeah.
And even Fairbanks, when we went there, it was a raucous environment. Usually they have the best home record in the league, just not this year for whatever reason. So I think that road magic could rub off on us a little bit. It limits distractions. We go on the bus, we focus on the game, we get off and we play, and I think that that's a little bit more beneficial for us than just being at home and kind of just strolling in and going through the motions,
Right.
More focused as a group on the road.
Yeah, you're right. You do not see that very often. We were just talking about this with like basketball the other day about home and away records and just like the discrepancy between some of the best teams with their home and away records. And it's kind of a little bit of the opposite for your league right now.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, when you break it down, home and away in hockey, it's about 500. It doesn't make a difference when you look at this level or even at the professional levels. But like you said, basketball, NBA, Big Ten.
Yeah.
I mean, those environments make a difference.
Yep.
And we do see discrepancies a lot between home and away.
You're right, because you are a Big Ten guy.
Yep.
You've gone to Penn State. So do you still kind of pay attention, keep tracks of all the stuff that's going on in the Big Ten?
Oh, everything. Every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even a little hoops action on there too for the Big Ten?
Yeah, I saw Rutgers got the upset versus Purdue. Penn
Yeah.
State played Purdue at the Palestra and fell in that one. But I know Wisconsin's very good in basketball in the Big Ten pretty consistently. Not quite sure how they're doing this year. You'll have to catch me up on that. But
Ranked 18th right now,
There
but
you go.
they got a little injuries kind
Okay.
of crawling up. They got Michigan State tonight, so that's always going to be a tough one. With
yeah, they're
Izzo
good.
and
They're
that.
a good basketball program as well.
So I got to ask, when you were a student at Penn State, when you guys played like Wisconsin in football or anything like that, was that kind of like I don't want to say rivalry because I don't think it's necessarily a rivalry, but did you guys kind of get amped up? What was the feeling like as a student getting ready for like a Badger football game?
Yeah, when Penn State was playing Wisconsin, especially when we were at home, it was like, one of the best teams from the West Division is here to play, and we have to bring our A game. Penn State obviously has aspirations to make the biggest bowl games in the playoff and stuff. So when they had, probably at that time, especially while I was a student, Wisconsin was the best in the West. And it was about how can they, take them down to continue their season when you already have Ohio State, Michigan State on your schedule.
Right.
It makes it really tough, and I won't say that the West has it easier, but not having to play Michigan and Ohio State every single year certainly should be a blessing.
It's going to be different now with USC and UCLA coming over here.
It's going to be
for the
really,
Big Ten.
really strange.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm ready for it.
I don't know if I'll ever be able to recognize those two teams as a Big Ten team. Yeah, it just doesn't sound right.
No,
when you say it.
It just doesn't to me, but I think that that's the direction college football is headed in. I mean, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but my prediction is that we're going to get into 2 mega conferences that are just going to consolidate, and that's going to be your typical NFC, AFC, NFL style. I don't know for sure, but
it's like almost like a northern versus southern type of feel, because I'm assuming you're referring to like the SEC and the Big 12 and all those
100%.
guys combining down there.
Yes, and obviously Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC and all that stuff. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. I was wondering about that a lot when this first announced. Like, could it ever happen where you got those 2 mega conferences right there?
And I like the expansion to 12 teams in the playoff. We saw yesterday just a trouncing.
Yeah.
But I would like to see more of like a tournament style, get to the best 2 teams, at the end.
Right. Definitely. So I got, back to when you were Penn State kid, was it Ohio State your biggest rivalry, or was it Michigan? Or
I would say it's pretty split. I mean, a lot of
Okay.
people are just pretty frustrated with Ohio State having Penn State's number over the years, but
Mhm.
people are just frustrated with Michigan fan base. They think they're just better than everybody, and so some people just didn't like Michigan more for that reason alone.
So it was kind of more like
Yeah.
the, they didn't like Ohio State because they were good. They were
Yes,
good, and then
yes.
Michigan because of fam. That makes sense. We see that a lot with some teams out there
Yeah,
and their rivals.
no, for sure. And obviously those games were always the big whiteout games whenever they were in Beaver Stadium. So like everybody got fired up on a Saturday night, in prime time college game day. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. Since you're here, I got to ask a couple of like NHL stuff
Okay.
with you too, because I know you're a Devils fan, and I think the last time that you were on, that was that win streak that the Devils were on.
Yeah.
They were in that middle of that crazy winning streak there. It's kind of settled down a little bit.
Yeah.
They're second in their division right now. But when you kind of how often are you able to kind of still keep tabs on what's going on in the NHL and such?
The NHL is my favorite, right?
Yeah.
So I just every day, there's so many talented players out there, and I just love watching the game. And hockey is just unmatched to me. So yeah, the Devils were in that 13-game win streak. It's cooled down a lot, but obviously, just from around the league, everybody's good. It's there's no nights off in the National Hockey League, even in our league, the North American Hockey League. So it's been exciting this season. I'm just keeping tabs on the Minnesota Wild too, since I'm around here.
Yep.
And they're kind of up and down, a little inconsistent, kind of like we are right now. So I really, it's a good league.
Yeah.
NHL.
Is so if I had to ask you right now at this point, and I know we got a lot of hockey left to be played, but Boston or the field? Would you take Boston or the field?
I'm actually taking the field.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm taking a couple teams. Carolina Hurricanes right now, I just think are a complete team. Up and down their lineup, I don't see a weakness. I understand Boston is unbelievable, 31-4-4. But the last time the team that won the President's Trophy for the best regular season record won the Stanley Cup, I can't even recall it. It just that's an NBA thing.
Right.
That doesn't happen in the NHL. More often than not, the President's Trophy is actually out in the first round. It's very funky. It's the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs is almost like round number 1 of March Madness. It's just unpredictable. So
good nugget right there.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Is there a team that you think, okay, maybe not having the greatest season so far, but you'd be like, I wouldn't still count them out to maybe make a run or get hot at the right time?
Yeah, good question. There's a couple teams that are sitting outside of playoff position right now that I still think are going to strike. The Buffalo Sabres are an interesting one. I don't know if they're going to be good or not. I like I think Florida Panthers are still extremely talented. They won the President's Trophy last year, but they're off to a slow start this season. So watch out for those two teams. I just think I think Vegas is also poised to go for a Stanley Cup run as well in the West. The West is weaker than the East, so we'll see if they have what it takes to make a run at the Stanley Cup.
Good stuff there. So we were talking off the air as well. You are a Jets fan, and you actually got to go to Lambeau, so you got to cross that off. Was that a bucket list for you all for the most of your life, or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So give us your thoughts. First time at Lambeau, what was it like?
First time in Lambeau, I walk in and I'm like, I don't know what to expect, but I actually see like the big giant like team store first, and my eyes just lit up. I was like, this is magnificent, just how much memorabilia and how many people were in there purchasing merchandise. Like what I found really interesting was from the drive from here, Eau Claire, all the way over to Green Bay, there's nothing but cornfields and flat lands, and then boom, stadium.
Right.
And it was bizarre to me because, back in the East, it's obviously more urban population. So I get to the stadium and I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, right next to the stadium is this house and somebody's backyard. And it to me just didn't register that there wasn't big parking lots and everybody was parking in just like,
dude, I remember
yards.
Yeah, I remember. So like where the Titletown district is. So when I started, and this wasn't that long ago, Kmart and Big Lots was right there. And then you had a little rinky-dinky hotel and a bar. I mean, it was, can you imagine like that whole Titletown thing? It was just nothing but like strip malls and a Kmart and a Big Lots and a Hardee's was sitting right there.
Crazy. And then next to the stadium, or next to it all, a stadium.
It's a stadium, and then you're right, neighborhoods right next to it.
And I
So,
was impressed by the atmosphere. And those Packers
Mhm.
fans, they get on their feet, they make a lot of noise. And we had one of the higher up seats, but there's not a bad seat in the house.
No, I
And
don't
just the
think so
way that
either.
it's built, it's just
Mhm.
around the stadium. It's
It's kind of
pretty
like a college stadium a little bit.
100%. It's like intimate,
Mhm.
with the bleacher seats and everything. So I have a lot of respect for Packers fans going out there braving the cold elements every year, but they sell out every game, it seems.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. So I got to ask, with the playoffs starting, who do you got going to the Super Bowl?
Before the season started, I picked the Kansas City Chiefs, so I'm
Mhm.
going to stick with that prediction. I just think that they have the best odds,
Mm-hmm.
but it'll be interesting to see. I mean, you can't count out any team right now.
Yeah.
I would say I actually, people are going to really hate me for this. I just think the Dallas Cowboys are a sleeper team.
I said it before you were on the air.
Really?
Too, so, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of fans that, if you're
I
not,
could see them losing their first game, but then also
I
going
could
on
see
a
them
weird
going
run.
on a run.
Yeah.
I just can. People, maybe Dak Prescott's not having his best season, but
Mm-hmm.
not bad. I mean, they have a pretty good team. I mean, their defense is for real.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they could go on a run. That's my sleeper pick of the playoffs.
So you got like a Chiefs and Cowboys Super Bowl matchup.
That's going to be my pick. That'll be interesting.
That's kind of where I was leaning towards
Really?
too, to be honest with you. Like, I'm trying to talk myself out of it, but
Well, who do you have? Like, who's another team that you think could make it? You think?
I mean, Buffalo, you got to factor them in
Yeah.
into the thing too. Cincinnati's playing really well too. I could see them going back to it. I think in the AFC, it's like a 3-team. It's Buffalo, Kansas City, or Cincinnati. I would think going to represent the AFC, the NFC. And I'm not trying to diss Philadelphia or anything like that, but it could be Philadelphia. I think it could be Dallas. I'm not trying to pick on the Vikings. I'm just not sold on their defense.
I don't like the Vikings' chances. I'll be honest with you. The NFC is kind of up for grabs.
Yeah,
and I think
San Francisco, but again, it's Brock Purdy. And I'm not trying to diss him, but it's like you're kind of waiting for the Brock Purdy game to that's why he was a 7th round pick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I think that he could definitely turn into a really, strong player. He's obviously played the year really well, but I'm not going to say system QB,
Right.
But I mean, like he has a lot of surrounding talent that's helping him out, which really makes the difference. And I think that the Eagles, the way that they finished the year as slow as they did, just kind of scraping by, doesn't have me convinced. The Cowboys obviously lost, but after losing games, if you look at their record when they lose games, they've rattled off 4 in a row consistently.
Mm-hmm.
So all they got to do is win 4 in a row again. I don't think that
it's a good nugget.
Yeah. And Vikings, I'm not sold on them. Obviously, their defense, they're winning games by the slightest of margins. Eventually, it's going to come down to earth, just like TCU last night, winning games by the slightest of margins.
Yeah.
Another purple team in the Vikings. I just don't think that they're going to make it, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll really see.
It should be fun. I wish Green Bay was in there, but it is what it is. So,
did you go to the game?
I did not, and I had a chance, but I'm kind of those late games and then coming back here for morning show. I'm sounding like an old man, but it catches up to you. But so are you what's your biggest rival if you're a Jets fan? Is it the Patriots?
I'd say it's the Patriots.
Yeah,
yeah, just because they were so good for so long. And
do you have any feelings with the Giants or anything Is there really?
I don't like the Giants. Yeah,
okay.
I mean, I don't think
so. You and Casey must really kind of, because I know Casey's a Giants fan.
Yeah, he's a Giants fan. No, we don't butt heads too much because they never play, right?
Right. Just preseason. It seems like
just the Snoopy Bowl.
Yeah.
That's it in the preseason. That's all I got. But no, I just think that it's always in New York, especially around the market that I'm from. It's always like big brother, little brother kind of thing. It's the Yankees over the Mets. It's the Giants over the Jets, the Rangers over the Devils. And the Knicks even, I'd say, are going to be the front page over the Nets more consistently.
Yeah.
So that kind of dynamic makes things interesting, but we'll see, because right now I think that the younger teams, or maybe like the Mets, Jets, Devils kind of thing, are starting to creep up there and starting to win more consistently finally. So we'll see.
Definitely. So to wrap it up again, Steele, bye week here for the guys. But then next week, got a home game, the last one in January, First Responders Night. As Kyle said, if you're a first responder, you get in for free. So it's packed house, but it's a big game too, because of the standings going up against the Wilderness. So
hope to see everybody there. We should have a lot of promotions that night. And if you haven't been to a game yet, I would highly encourage it. Chippewa Steel, high quality hockey right in Chippewa Falls, and it's a blast.
Rally the Valley, right?
Rally the Valley. We're hoping for great fan bases consistently for the rest of the year.
Awesome. Kyle, appreciate you stopping in, man. Good catching up with you again.
Thank you, Dan. As always, really appreciate it.
You got it. Hey, we're going to take a quick break, and then RJ Cardinal, our Badger analyst from the Zone, will be hopping on, talk some football and basketball after these quick words. Big thanks again to Kyle from the Steel for stopping by. If you missed portions of our chat, we'll put it up in a new episode of the Man Cave podcast. So don't forget, send those screenshots in if you're rating or reviewing the podcast, and maybe we'll send you a little something if you send me that screenshot. Okay? Let's talk some Badgers, and I got to ask RJ, are you kind of like me? Every time you see the Luke Fickell bat signal on Twitter, you get a little excited about who's next coming to Wisconsin, either a recruit or another transfer portal. I love that he does that, man. I love that thing.
Yeah, and I mean, we didn't see a lot of it from the previous coaching staff. the recruiting department did, but even then you didn't see it as much. But I think kind of restocking things here, you're seeing a lot of what the new coaching staff feels they need, and we're seeing a lot right now. So it'll be interesting to see how active that is moving forward. But yeah, I mean, you kind of be like, ooh, I wonder what's about to get announced, or
Right.
who we're about to see tweet. I am excited to announce I'm continuing my academic and athletic career at Wisconsin. So yeah,
Mhm.
it is a little fun to be watching.
Yeah, and I was kind of saying the other day, RJ, Luke Fickle and his staff comes in, and the one thing I think that they're doing extremely well is they're getting everybody excited. Everybody's like, okay, Jimmy Leonard. I think a lot of fans were upset for Jimmy, like disappointed that he didn't get the dream job. But Luke Fickle brought some excitement. But the way that him and his staff right now and how they're going about things, they're getting this fan base fired up. RJ, do you remember an off season in previous years, even when you were with the program, where maybe this many fans were excited and pumped up about this team?
Maybe not to this extent, but I mean, you also had a run of success where you were still looking forward to the next year, and not a complete, about face on
Hmm.
how the program was going to be moving forward. So I think it's a completely different level of excitement we're talking here, and it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully, live up to this hype everybody's kind of getting behind and seeing from at least some of the transfers and the signees that we've seen since the change in staff.
It feels like, lack for a better word, or phrase, it seems like this staff is kind of going about things in a more up to date kind of way. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to say younger, but I mean it's like they're kind of relating maybe a little bit more to the recruiting process or to how college sports is right now.
Yeah, I don't really remember staff being this active on social media, and I think you can say younger in
Yeah.
that sense. Um, it, it's not to say the old staff wasn't doing things correctly. I mean, really, up until COVID and shutting down campus and furloughing people, and then not hiring a recruiting staff. It's not like Wisconsin was doing bad in the recruiting department.
Hmm.
So it's it's a relatively new thing that Wisconsin wasn't really participating in recruiting, which still baffles me. But I mean, it happened. So yeah, it's kind of crazy to think that. But yeah, it does seem there's a new level of interaction, not just with fans. Well, I mean, it's got to be with fans on social media, because you can't really reach out to kids and have open conversations with them like that. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to see.
Yeah, RJ Cardinal, our Badger analyst, joining us here this morning. So some of the latest recruits has been offensive line. Badgers really building up that offensive line. We know that there was a couple receivers visiting the Badgers as well. But can you tell us a little bit about some of these offensive linemen that the Badgers got through the transfer portal?
Yeah, you're talking about two kids from Cincinnati.
Hmm.
Wow, just blanked on what school he just came from. Jake Renfro sat out almost the entire 2022 season, but 2021 he was All American Athletic Conference first team. He graded out with the Pro Football Focus numbers very highly in the 2021 season. So you're getting a well experienced center there. So it'll be you're replacing a guy leaving for the NFL draft with a guy who at some point probably will be in the NFL draft, which is good. You also have another transfer from Cincinnati, offensive tackle in Joe Huber. He's really not rated at all anywhere. But I mean, everybody still seems to agree that that's another good pickup as a tackle there and building depth to your room there at Wisconsin. So that's a good one to get in the room. And I mean, we had been talking about the lack of depth we've been seeing there lately. So another just more competition there, get things going. Then yesterday on the defensive side of the ball, Jeff Pietrowski is a D lineman slash outside linebacker from Michigan State who missed most of this year after getting hurt against Washington. But prior to that, in 23 games, he had 4 goals, 7.5 tackles for loss, and 5.5 sacks. So, he's a guy who I think has 2 to 3 years left, depending on if he takes his COVID year or not. So, I mean, in the last few days here, actually, I think since the last time we talked, they've added 5 because they added a DB from a safety from Boston College and then a D lineman from Temple who I believe was all conference last year. So, they did quite a bit of adding to their transfer class since we last talked.
Yeah, and I know I don't think it's fairly confirmed yet, but I know I saw like on Twitter, college football transfer portal said that sources are saying that CJ Williams is heading to Wisconsin. I know he visited this past weekend, but that's a big wide receiver coming over to Wisconsin too, isn't he?
Yeah, he looks like he's one of those guys who can push for playing time right away, and friends with Nick Evers. So hopefully Nick Evers is doing some recruiting there. I believe he also visited West Virginia last week, and apparently there's reports, not confirmed, that he's visiting Notre Dame this week. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But hopefully a friendship can mean a little more than going to a university where a buddy of yours isn't in line to play quarterback at some point.
Nick Evers seems to be like buying into this Wisconsin. I mean, even with quarterbacks coming in, he's been tweeting out, like welcome aboard and all that sort of stuff. It almost feels like Nick Evers is, maybe I'm being a little too dramatic in this, RJ, but it's kind of stepping up and being a leader already with this team. Like he's really buying in, at least on social media, with what Fickle and Wisconsin's doing right now.
Well, outside of some recruits that were already, stayed and not left and came back or anything like that, he was really the first guy that they picked. So, I mean, you got to feel a little pride in that. And if they believe in you, I mean, sometimes it's just that easy. They believe in me. I'm going to believe in these guys, and we'll see what happens. So hopefully, that turns into success for him moving forward. They bring Tanner Mordecai in to probably have some guy with experience in this style of offense. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be the starter, but I mean, even at SMU, he was slinging the ball around, so and still able to be a mobile guy as well. It's one of those. We'll see what happens this spring, who we see pushing forward and all that kind of stuff. But you're at least building depth in that quarterback room. And then I saw one yesterday that's reporting guy from Mississippi State, I think it was, that Wisconsin's talking to as well.
Yep.
And all these people are just like, we have quarterbacks, we're okay. Well, the last 3 years, all I've heard about is we have no depth in the quarterback room. Why don't we have other guys? Well, if they're continuing to just put scholarship guys in that quarterback room, and you go from 3 guys that really could have played last year to 2 of those guys are still there. Both of those guys couldn't beat out Graham Mertz. You added 2 more. You got 1 coming next year. If you add 1 more in the portal, you have 5 guys who are on scholarship and had been regarded enough to be offered by SEC schools 2 for Big 12 schools. One transferred out to SMU to go play, but still put up gaudy numbers. You have depth in your quarterback room now. So if you add another one from, if this somehow they talk this Mississippi State kid into coming, I mean, what's wrong with that? And then you got Cole LaCrue coming in next year as well. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those where your room goes from, well, it's Graham Mertz, and then they're not going to give anybody else a chance to maybe a real quarterback battle.
Right. Yeah, that's the exciting part in this whole thing too. RJ Cardinal, our Badger analyst, joining us here this morning. So, I'm sure we'll have more football stuff next week because it always happens after we get done talking. But basketball wise, Badgers, they dropped 4 spots in the latest AP rankings after their loss to Illinois. They got Michigan State tonight. But how big is that Tyler Wall ankle injury, and how big is that going to affect the Badgers in their upcoming schedule if he misses any extended period of time?
Yeah, it's looking like that could be an issue.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I think I saw reports that said Greg Gard was saying he's looking doubtful for tonight for him to play. And then you're on your way to Bloomington, Indiana to play the Hoosiers on Saturday. So it's one of those. Hopefully you get something resolved here in terms of that ankle getting better, because it's not like the Big Ten has a stretch where you can miss him and still do fine. I mean, you lost him for most of that Minnesota game, but Minnesota is not a good basketball team right now. And, they were shooting lights out for a few spurts there that really kept Minnesota in the game, and that kind of uncharacteristic of what you have seen from them for most of the year. So, but I mean, you have Northwestern beating people. Penn State's not a slouch after Indiana, then you're traveling to Maryland later this month. Illinois comes back before you get into February and face Ohio State. So, it's not like there's some easy games coming up for Tyler Wall to have the luxury of just sitting and this team being okay, because outside of Gilmore and Ilver's start to their time in that Illinois game, it kind of fell flat after that. So you'd like to see Wall back sooner rather than later.
Yeah, no doubt. How concerned are you with the way Badgers have been kind of starting these games maybe a little bit slower? Is that a concern for you right now, or do you want to see maybe as they get a little bit deeper into their Big Ten portion of their schedule?
I'm not too worried because they're still winning, outside that Illinois game. And yeah, maybe they dug themselves into a hole that could have been, a little less to overcome with the slow start. But they have been winning these games. At some point, you'd still like to see them not go on a 4 to 5 minute drought without scoring. It's one of those. We've seen it from Wisconsin for the longest time now. You're guaranteed almost a 3-minute scoring drought at any point in time in a game. So, I just wish it would not happen, but it's something, we've been living with for quite some time.
Right. I wanted to ask you, what have you kind of thought of Jordan Davis's play so far this year? I know there's been fans that have been maybe a little critical about it, but is that because they had high expectations because of what his brother did with the program? What have you made, or how do you make of Jordan Davis's play so far this year from what you've seen?
It's something you can't be mad at because he's not his brother. And I think once people start realizing that, I think the more of the kind of looking down on him comes from, well, Connor Essegian comes in for him, and I think people would rather see Connor Essegian starting rather than Jordan Davis. And I think that's where most of the negative the negative publicity he's getting is he's only got 7 points per game. Connor Essegian has 10. Why isn't Connor Essegian in there? Well, Davis has 4 rebounds per game. He's getting almost 2 steals a game. It's like, or actually about 1 steal a game. Sorry, I was a line down for Clyde Smith, who's doing awesome this year. But it's his field goal percentage is in the 40s, and it's one of those. If you're looking just on paper, it should be Connor Essegian, but the defensive side of the ball, I think Johnny Davis is a little bit. Jordan Davis is a little bit ahead of Connor Essegian on that side of things, but it's mostly the optics of, well, look, when Essegian gets in, he's just making buckets.
Yeah. Last question for you. I think Connor would probably be the pick for the majority of people here, but between these 2 starters, who have you been most impressed with their growth this year, Chucky Hepburn or Steven Crowell?
Steven Crowell.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those, like, these past couple of games, he's made that transition that we've seen so many Wisconsin big men make. And it's right around this same time, their junior year, they finally grow into their body and understand what they can do on a court. Sure, he's still missing some of those little 2-feet buckets, which I'd like that to change, but still, he looks like he's getting the hang of things a lot more this year than he has in the past, and especially since it looks like he's put on more weight as well onto that frame. So, Chucky, what we saw of him being under Brad Davison and still being the guy, I think his maturation is looking good, but more impressed with what I'm seeing from Steven Crowell.
Yeah, Steven's shooting 50% from the field, and Chucky, I don't know if he's going to be able to keep this up, but 50% from 3, whew, hot. I don't know if he'll be able to keep that up, but that'd be awesome if he would. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so.
that'd be really good if you're shooting. It's kind of crazy. And yeah, Crowell, he's making some open threes when he does it, on near 30%. But yeah. 40% for Chucky from the field, 50 from threes, like you said, and then Crowell 50% from the field, and 29% from 3. For a big man, those are some good percentages right there. So just get the free throw percentage up, and he's going to be a much better contributor than he already is.
Absolutely. All right, RJ, appreciate the time as always. I'm sure we'll have, like we said, more football talk with more transfer portal players and all that good stuff next week. So be ready, buddy. I know you always are, but we'll look for the Luke Fickle bat signal to come on Twitter. So.
Yeah, I mean, I hope there is.
Yeah.
Because that means only good things are happening.
Did you see Phil Longo the other day said like 5 more weapons? Do we when I see weapons and an offensive coordinator tweet that, I'm thinking like wideouts and running backs or something like that. I mean, but I haven't really seen like 5 of those so far. Have you?
Well, from what I see, a lot of the recruiting boards in terms of like some of the Evan Floods and McNamara's and things like that, they're saying they've added 7 weapons in terms of the transfer portal as of right now. So It was 5 when you had Evers, Mordecai, the DB from Boston College, Varner from Temple, and Huber. So that was 5. And then the next day, after Renfro and Piotrowski made their commitment known, Longo woke up and said 7 weapons. Sorry,
Gotcha.
So I think it's the guys who have entered the transfer portal and came out at Wisconsin. So I think that's it, unless they have 7 kids who are going to be announcing and signing in early February that we don't know about yet. But outside of the transfer portal, I don't think I've seen too many people say they were at least verbally committing to Wisconsin yet as recruits. So, yeah, I guess time will tell, and we'll see if 7 becomes 8, if Burrows or Williams decide they're going to transfer to Wisconsin, or if it becomes 9 if both of them do. So, yeah, we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. All right, RJ. Well, you have a good rest of your week, buddy. And hey, we'll catch up next week. Okay, sir?
Sounds good. We will talk to you then.
You got it. There you go. There's RJ Cardinal, Badger analyst from the Zone in Madison. We got to take a quick break and wrap things up. Covering the bases, closing statements, all that fun stuff. After these few words. All right, big thanks to everybody for tuning in, hopping on, sending some texts, sending some tweets, commenting on the video stream there. So good stuff. Appreciate everybody chiming in. Let's kind of cover some bases here. Not a whole lot to cover because while we talked Bucks picking up the win last night. Got that come from behind, 17 points behind the Knicks in the fourth to get that victory. Off night tonight for the Bucks before they take on Atlanta and then Miami for a couple games. Badgers tip off tonight at 6 p.m. against Michigan State. Got that on the docket. Tomorrow, I think we'll take a look. Maybe might as well get this one over with, but maybe we'll take a look at the quarterback position for the Green Bay Packers as we continue our kind of off-season scouting, reflections, however the heck we wanted to name this sort of segment that we're doing. Did the coaching today after Matt LaFleur's presser from yesterday. So maybe we'll just we'll bite the bullet and get the quarterback one out of the way here. I saw Andrew Brandt tweet this out. Remember Andrew Brandt used to work for the Packers and such, was actually the first one to negotiate Aaron Rodgers' contract. He's kind of like, he was the Russ Ball before Russ Ball. But said this was earlier this morning, a couple hours ago. Yes, Aaron Rodgers has a $60 million guarantee next year. And yes, that's a ton of money to walk away from. But one, Aaron is a different cat than most of you know. And two, the Packers in the messy divorce with Brett were willing to give him roughly $20 million to walk away. Just a thought. Now, and that's kind of like, I guess, opened up a conversation a little bit online. Like, is that a possibility where Green Bay like tries to give Aaron money to go away? Now, I would argue it was maybe a little bit of a different scenario because Favre retired. They gave the keys to Aaron Rodgers, if you will. Then he wanted to come back, and instead of like taking the keys away from Aaron, just go away, Brett. I don't know if they would like give Aaron a $20-30 million, hey, retirement gift. Here you go, sort of thing. I don't think that. I don't know. But buckle up, baby, because it's going to happen again. All the talk about Rodgers and that sort of thing. Jerry Jones was doing his radio interview right now. He usually does one every week. But a couple of things, and it might lead me to a question if we ever get to that point that I would love to ask Packers fans. But Jerry Jones told 105.3 The Fan that he can't tell you, he, quote, can't tell you how much confidence he has in Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys coaching staff. I have complete confidence in this coaching staff. It's outstanding. We've got a great chance to go down there and have success. He was emphatic when he was asked about the Cowboys' playoff success and how it could impact Mike McCarthy's job security. If the Cowboys lose to the Bucks, would Mike be out? No, he exclaimed. I don't even want to. No, that's it. Well, we'll see. Maybe it kind of would depend on the loss there. But the question, I guess, that was kind of popping through my head is, for all the, the frustration from Packers fans right now, kind of going on with the state of the franchise and such, if Mike McCarthy were to win a Super Bowl with the Cowboys, does that maybe change the negative perception that some Packers fans had against Mike McCarthy? And maybe they'd be like, hey, maybe it wasn't necessarily all him. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But I would be curious if we ever get to that point, if Mike wins another Super Bowl and it's with the hated Cowboys, does that change some of the negative perception that some fans have against McCarthy? We'll get to that if we ever get to that. DP and the Danettes are up next. Have yourself a good Tuesday. We'll be back at it again tomorrow morning, 6 a.m.